Hello everyone, we are still in Marseille. It is day 2 of our trip here in the south of France, and it is the morning after. We're sitting in our hotel in the shadows of the Stade Vélodrome on another beautiful afternoon in Marseille, and we're sifting through what was an incredible evening for Irish rugby, and what a bounce back it was after the agony of the World Cup in October. For France, not so much. They do seem to still be very much hungover after what took place in that World Cup quarter-final against South Africa. We all thought it was an Irish team that was capable of winning if things went their way, Alan. We thought the new guys would have an opportunity to show that they belonged to be there, but I don't think anybody predicted that they would win comfortably and have us and them feeling so much better about themselves after what was another incredible evening in France.
Well, I predicted that we'd win on the podcast during the week.
One of the few people who would have done that, so congratulations on that prediction.
Well, it was a brave call. To be honest, as the week went on, Dave, then I was thinking, yeah, it's hard to see it. It's hard to see it. I certainly thought that Ireland would turn up, and I thought that they would certainly play, and their attack structure wouldn't change from what they'd built up in the previous 18 months. So I knew they had a real chance, and when you play like that and your attack is really good, you always have a chance. The key was probably starting the game well, and nothing's changed there over the years, whether you're with your province or with your country playing in France. The reality is it's a standard kind of message. Don't let the opposition get their tails up, because their confidence goes through the roof and they can really punish you. So you've got to stick in those tough moments, and so that's what I was thinking leading into the game. Ireland start well, not necessarily get loads of scores and all that, which they ended up getting a couple of scores at the start and getting themselves in a good position, but stay in the physical game, do the basics really well, let France and the crowd know that you're here to play tonight and you're not going to be shoved around. So they did that brilliantly, and I thought the temperament of the team was really good. And look, I keep saying it, Andy Farrell, kind of sets that tone, doesn't he, in the week, in the build-up. Speaking in the lead up to this game, he was talking about obviously the disappointment. You can't hide away from the fact that what happened in France against New Zealand and what could have been for this Irish team. But I think what they did last night is they proved that they're still an incredibly good squad. They're still really good at so many facets of the game, and they have a real belief and confidence to be able to play. Flip side of that, you could say France weren't at their best.
But I wanted to ask you about the French, because naturally a lot of their issues last night would have stemmed from the immense pressure that was being put on them by Ireland. But how much do we need to qualify at the margin of victory and everything that Ireland did well with how dreadful the French were last night?
Well, we'll always look and try, and it's natural in sport, isn't it, Dave? You work a lot in sport for many years now, that, we always look and say, well, one of our teams wins, we always straight automatically think, oh, the opposition were bad. And people, ex-French players last night that I met after the game were saying, yeah, we were really bad. But the balance is somewhere in the middle here, that Ireland were really good, and particularly in rugby, where it's about possession and contact and physicality and gain line and all that kind of stuff. It's a very important part. They're very important parts of the game. And if you hold on to the ball for long periods, you can fatigue the opposition, and you can find little chinks in their armour around their mentality, around their fitness, around the way they're trying to play. You can make them look poor. So with pressure, the word pressure in sport. So Ireland cranked up the pressure on so many occasions last night, really early on, intensity. France were probably are still suffering a little bit more so, definitely more so than Ireland, because it was like a national disaster here when we lost to New Zealand in that quarter-final. You could feel the disappointment all around Paris, with Irish people meeting them the next day and Sunday. Everyone was, back home was really devastated and disappointed and all that kind of stuff. Rugby people and general sports fans who supported the team. But the Monday morning in Paris, after France were knocked out by South Africa, it felt like it was a national disaster. That it was way worse than what essentially Ireland were going through. So maybe there's a little bit of that. The crowd last night, then they seemed to kind of turn a little bit in the French, and a lot of booing, and not necessarily at individual players, but in general. the way they were playing, and so a culmination of Ireland being really good, France just not being at the races, not hitting their straps early on, and Ireland punished them for that. They showed moments, of course, and the one thing with Ireland is, people will keep questioning the quarter-final loss, and when it really mattered. You of all people said to me you would have taken a 40-point loss last night to have a 1-point win against New Zealand, and it's kind of true, like. But look, what can you do? You can't dwell in the past.
Well, we can continue to discuss the World Cup quarter-final for as long as we want, but because we don't have to get ourselves up for the next game.
Correct.
We don't have to be on the training pitch tomorrow working on developing.
And that's what's impressive for me, that mentally they said, right, well, we can't change it, so we sit in and wallow in it, and then we get torn to shreds here in Marseille if we don't actually apply ourselves right and get ourselves mentally right. So coaches in that situation deserve a lot of praise for the way they've got the players right. Obviously the players go out in the field, but in the prep, the messages, what they would have presented to the players and said, look, here's X number of examples in this New Zealand game that we can't change now, but we can try and learn from it in the future, and maybe half of us will be in Australia in a couple of years and we'll get a chance. That's the heartbreak of sport.
But so has the French coaching team failed in that regard? They did not appear to be a team that had managed to put that World Cup quarter-final against South Africa in the rearview mirror.
No, I think, look, Ireland were outstanding and France couldn't get the ball back off them. So it's really difficult when you're in that moment, when you're playing a team that are... Ireland proved last night that they're an incredibly good side, and there is actually many world-class players in that team. And I've had this for the last 12 months, year and a half, with lots of people outside, English, Welsh, Scottish people, journalists, ex-players, actually saying, in fairness, some of these guys are unbelievable rugby players. So we have a very core group of an excellent group of players. So I think they made France look poor last night. But if you don't have that core group and top quality and mentally strong, resilient people, France win that game last night, even if they're not on full, if they're not going full metal jacket. So they had a couple of players missing. And look,
as every team does.
Dupont.
Did the French themselves, did everybody underestimate how much they would suffer without him? Obviously, he's the best rugby player on the planet right now. Any team without him is going to be severely weakened. But I wonder, was it underestimated the significance of him not being there, the impact it would have on them?
Maybe because Maxime Lucu, and for any Irish fans, he's a super player. We saw him in the sports ground with Bordeaux at round one.
Did he look out of his depth last night? Ireland made him look that way?
No, he didn't, because one of the areas that they struggle, and for any scrum half, even if Dupont was playing there last night, he's working off a lot of scraps.
Yeah.
They had punchy moments and that pressure moment before half-time where they got to try, and their two tries, they got them all going for Gabriel Ag's try as well, but he was digging a lot, Lucu. Their breakdown was under so much pressure. Joe McCarthy, Caelan Doris, Josh van der Fleer, all these players, O'Mahony, they're just putting so much pressure, Byrne, Sheehan, the whole Irish pack. And I thought someone who played, won't get a lot of mentions last night, Tyke Furlong, I thought, was really, really, had some moments that are not standout moments, but I thought he looked really in the mix last night. He's obviously gone through a tough time, pre-Christmas, losing his dad, had an injury, so it was a tough time for him, and his dad was sick for a lot of the time, and I was just really happy for him as well last night, that he looked really pumped. He looked like having that bit of spark back in him, which is, it's difficult to keep it going all the time. He's been such a wonderful player for such a long time. So I think energy, enthusiasm, all that real desire to get rid of that French threat around the breakdown. Sean Edwards said it afterwards. He said, Ireland's breakdown was just phenomenal. It's the best he's ever seen. So if you're someone like that, who knows the effect of what a breakdown can do to your attack, to your defence, to everything. So, look, it's it's a big win for Ireland. It's the Six Nations. It feels like a little bit of an anti-climax of the World Cup disappointment, but what's in front of them, and I think I like the fact that they've zoned in on, we're on a new journey again. Some new players coming in. Joe McCarthy was unbelievable. Jack Crowley had some really great moments in the game. A couple of mistakes. Calvin Nash was really good as well. So there's kind of 3 new players in there starting for Ireland, and they contributed really immensely to the win.
Yeah, well, there'll be an awful lot of pressure on this French team now when they go to Edinburgh next weekend. And that is a game that you'll see live on Virgin Media 1 next Saturday afternoon. That's a huge match against Scotland. And also, Ireland's second game is live from the Aviva Stadium next Sunday afternoon on Virgin Media 1, so you can see that as well. So both teams that took to the field in the Velodrome last night, you can watch them live on Virgin Media television in a week's time. So Ireland got their Grand Slam defence off to a brilliant start last night in the south of France. Their under-20s are going to be looking to do something very similar. They're, of course, chasing a 3rd slam in a row, and they are away in Aix-en-Provence this evening. Myself and Alan will be up there watching them. It's a little 6,000-seater stadium, the Stade Maurice David, and it's going to be an interesting game because they're up against a really strong French side, Alan. There are a lot of French guys tonight making their under-20 debut, but they are still very experienced. A huge chunk have played many games in the top 14 and or Pro D2, whereas from an Irish point of view, there are very few that have senior professional club experience.
And if you go back to the Junior World Cup final in South Africa, we had an Ireland-French team in the final, and France just... The one thing that stood out for me was the physicality and the kind of... It looked like at times, not entirely, because that's been disrespectful. We had some really big, strong, physical players in the Irish team last year, big pack, but the French guys looked like men, do you know what I mean? And a lot of their players would have been playing in the top 14 and had experience, and it would have been their 2nd year, or even 1 or 2 3rd year playing in their 20s, which was incredible. So some of their guys in the previous number of years were 18-year-olds who were under 18 playing the under 20s team, so they would have had 3 years of 20s. It's phenomenal.
And they've won 3 World Cups in a row, which is just astonishing at that level. And obviously Ireland have been the preeminent team in Six Nations Championship level, but just a quick word on the guys who are bringing the experience for Ireland. Evan O'Connell's captaining the side. You still have Brian Gleeson in the back row. Hugh Gavin is the guy who brings the experience to the back line. Obviously, he's been part of that World Cup team and the Grand Slam. Well. Joe Hope's also, and Danny Sheehan at hooker. They're going to be heavily relying on those guys tonight, aren't they?
And, they'll understand what's required and the kind of physical power that you're going to come up against. And that strength that I'm talking about. There's 8 of the French guys won the Junior World Cup that are in the squad tonight. There's about 5 or 6 of them missing. We saw Tuilagi, who's not playing tonight, obviously.
Thankfully from an Irish point of view.
The under-20s second row. So he came off the bench last night for the senior team. There's another 4 or 5. Royce, the La Rochelle fly half, who's a super player. He's got to stay back and be involved with La Rochelle today. The Bordeaux number 8, who was player of the tournament at the Rugby World Championships as well. So there's about 6 of them who actually are not available tonight, but they still have so much power and experience and quality. And you said it, we would have had we have a number of players who were involved in the provinces but not playing these games regularly. But I think it's really important. Evan O'Connell's presence. He was there last year, won a Grand Slam. Sheehan, Gleeson. Gleeson was a standout last year throughout the whole Six Nations and at the World Cup. So someone like that can give him a little bit of energy. And he spoke during the week about passing on his experience. So a lot of good young Irish players here, and Hugh Gavin in the centre as well. He was a standout player last year for Ireland. So those 4 or 5, there's a bit of extra pressure. But what needs to happen is the rest of the players around them need to try and lead themselves from the front and not wait for those experienced guys. So a little bit unknown, because sometimes you don't know how these games will go. The one thing you get with the under-20s is ambition. You don't get teams kind of kicking the ball into the ruck and slowing it down. They want to play. It's natural for teams. So fingers crossed we get a great game. 2 years ago, the Ireland under-20s had a dramatic win right at the end of the game, and it led to a Grand Slam. So hopefully they'll get a bit of a lift from the senior team last night as well. But dare I say it, it's down to that physical kind of intensity, and if the Irish forwards can match the French under-20s tonight, you know, they've a chance, you know, but it's a tall order to go and win against the quality that they're going to face in the French under-20s tonight.
Well, the last two meetings of these teams have been absolute thrillers, 60-point games at each occasion. Sam Prendergast was the star at 10 the last couple of years. Jack Murphy, son of Richie, the head coach, he's got the reins for this game in France tonight. It's going to be a really good game. We hope and that Ireland are competitive, and you can see all of it live on Virgin Media Television tonight. It's a 9:10 kick-off in local time, 8:10 back at home. We look forward to you joining us for that.